Testing, testing. Good morning or afternoon now, I suppose.
How's it going?
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Aaron. How y'all doing?
Pretty
Good.
good.
Good. It is 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Wayfinding and Planning Committee to order. We do have a quorum. We're only missing Will Owens. To start us off, we need to adopt the agenda. Does anyone have any changes?
No, I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. She can't make the motion. She's the liaison. Liaison.
Okay, who is on the thing?
You guys, someone needs to make a motion to adopt the agenda. Bob will make the motion.
I see that.
There's an echo in there.
Right?
Yes.
Are you?
Second. Yeah, we're good. So y'all need to vote now. So you need to take a vote. There's a motion on the table. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. We have no minutes to adopt. So we'll go straight into the project discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Aaron Arnett and Sean Turpak. They're with Arnett and Muldrow. They're our vendor for this project. We are very happy to be working with them. Guys, if you want to take it from here.
Great. Well, thank you so much, for spending some time with us this afternoon. We just wanted to give a brief, update on where we are, talk a little bit about the process. I understand that some of the people that we're meeting with this morning, are just part of our committee here and may not be fully aware of everything we're doing. And so just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of what got us here and then kind of just have a conversation about the process and next steps and what the expectations are through the project. Can everybody hear me okay?
Okay. Yeah, we hear you again.
Okay, good. Y'all, your sound is a little bit, I don't know if it's the microphone distance from everybody or what have you. So I apologize if I'll have to ask you to repeat anything as we go through here. And that being said, feel free to, stop and ask questions. I've just got, can I share my screen here? Let's see.
Yes, you should be able to. If not, I'll amend those privileges for you. Really fast though, with everyone, if you do want to say something, please make sure you turn on your mics. That way they'll be able to hear you.
And it's 2022. We've been doing this remote for a few years now, and WebEx apparently is new to my system, so I've got to oh, it wants me to quit in order to share my screen. So I'm sorry about this. I'm going to try to do this so I can share my screen. I'll be right back.
That method.
Okay, I'm back. I apologize for that. I thought at this point I would have had every different type of possible video conferencing software installed. And now it is asking you to allow for me to present.
Sean, try it now.
Okay. Ah, perfect. So let's see here. Oh, wait. Is there a way to share screen on this and not just a file?
You're right, Sean. After doing this for 3 years, you'd think we'd have all this figured out.
Yeah. It gives me a share option, but whenever I click on it, it just asks to share file, not like, and there's a
Not share
whiteboard
screen.
option, but not a share screen. It's just a share content. Go up, share. Very strange. Up under share, it just says content, browser. Will it? Okay. It says I'm now co-host. There we go. That worked. Thank you. Right. So, great. Well, thank you. Thank you for that and for accommodating. I apologize for the technical issue, but so we were contacted a few months back now. I don't have all the specific dates, but Christina had contacted us about doing a wayfinding project for the village of Marvin. And in our conversation with her and sort of the process that goes into that, the topic of branding came up. And, so understanding that the village has an identity that they're currently utilizing, but that it seemed to feel like there was not a lot of community buy-in to it. And so you all wanted to see about going through the branding process before investing in signage and all of that. And so we started putting together, a timeline for that and a project scope. And so I just want to walk through kind of quickly a little bit about us and the project, and then we can just kind of open it up to any questions you all have as far as, either of the projects go and the expectations. So let's see here. I'm Sean Turpak. I'm an art director with Arnett Muldrow, and I'm joined on the call today by Aaron Arnett. The company's been in business since 2002, specializing in community branding, economic development, master planning, and over the past probably 6, 7 years, we've really started building out a lot of wayfinding projects as well, all over the country and even into Belize. We've done over 600 various plans throughout over 40 states and into 5 countries, and many of those in North Carolina as well. And Aaron was actually started his career as a planner in, I believe it was Salisbury, North Carolina.
Yes, Salisbury.
Yeah. And so here's just a small sample of some of the brands we've done with a focus on some of our North Carolina experience over those years. A lot of different varieties and styles and different communities that we've worked with, in different capacities, some more economic development, some more downtown destination brands, some county-wide, but just shows a wide variety of the different styles and different communities we've worked in there. And
And
so,
each one of those that you see there are currently being used right now, too. There's been a lot of really good implementation in North Carolina. I want to say the closest one to y'all is Indian Trail, but I may not be totally correct on that. We also did stylings.
Mhm. So, for us, coming from as a city planning firm, our focus is always in the realities on the ground of the capacity of the community to implement and trying to get an honest authentic understanding of the community through engagement. And so what we try to accomplish with our branding projects is to reinforce the positive attributes of the place. We really want to focus on that community pride, because if we can kind of reflect back to the community what makes them proud of their community or happy to live in that community, then they are going to become natural ambassadors of the community itself. There are a lot of communities out in the world that they don't have a lot of necessarily branding, but people love living there, and the ambassadors of that community, are that word of mouth advertising is really, invaluable. And so we strive to reflect that. And we do so by creating a unified message that's not just relevant to visitors, but it has that foundation of local pride, but is also looking to attract the investment from potential business owners, potential new residents. Every community is different, and that's one of the dynamics that we're going to have to, spend a bit of time learning and understanding about the village of Marvin, is that you are very residential focused, but with your new village town center that you have there, also the potential for some other developments to start happening, and looking at how we can sort of convey that message as well. And we package all that up into our brand system that really helps kind of set the road map for the community to tell their story. And, just the top level here of what that consists of is the brand statement. Will establish the typefaces for the identity, a color palette, the primary icon, a tagline for the community, and then we'll get into broader extensions, whether that's partner organizations or events as well, and then marketing collateral, how we'll see that brand live out in the wild. And, this project was started on a conversation on wayfinding, so that's definitely going to be one of our big focuses here of what, that'll look like in the wild. But other things that we'll be looking at is other marketing collateral, whether it's economic development, like folders and flyers for potential investors, but also community swag, from hats to t-shirts and other things that you can buy in local retailers. That we'll start to work on establishing what that list looks like as we continue working through this project, and getting an understanding of what the community is going to be looking for, and what we feel like would benefit the community most from an implementation standpoint. So to kind of walk through these building blocks of what the brand project will entail, and what some of the outcomes of that will be, we're going to give you some examples of some of the other communities we've worked in to show you what those building blocks are. And the first one is the brand statement. As we engage with you all as a steering committee and the community at large through our themed roundtables and public input, we're going to start understanding the character and the assets of the community and the aspirations of the community as well, to create a narrative that really kind of encapsulates as much as we can distill down into this, that authentic story about the character of the place. And this is a short one for uh, Stanton, Virginia, that I don't know if how many of you might be familiar with it, but it is the home of the Shakespeare. Aaron, help me out here. It's what's the theater?
Great American Shakespeare Company,
Thank you.
and it
Sean,
brings in probably 100,000 visitors per year.
Sean, if you need to change, oh, never mind. You're good.
Excuse me?
Never mind. I thought you meant to switch the slide. You're good.
Yeah, yeah. I was just waiting to move over. So if you like a place where a thriving city sets its grid into the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, if you like striking views, spires and domes and hilly streets, if you like like a city of history where restored buildings house hip restaurants, shops, and galleries, if you like plays of Shakespeare or sustainable architecture, if you like a place where folks swap tips on how to restore historic homes and where people take to the streets to celebrate, if you like a place where the independent spirit thrives in gifted artists and musicians traditions, and where the solitude of the mountains is just a short drive away. If you like a place of learning where colleagues and schools inspire our youth, if you like a place where high tech meets down home, we are that place, the Queen City of the Shenandoah, where the spires of the city are our crown. We are Stanton, Virginia, as you like it. So we're taking that concept of the Shakespearean play as you like it and using that as the tagline to kind of tie into the themes of the community, but also sort of the story of it being this crown jewel of the Queen of the Valley and using that as the crown over the U in Stanton. And, it's a very interesting one. And I did not work on this project. This was a bit before my time with the company, but to this day, I still have to think about, it's interesting because a lot of people read this as Staunton. And so by pulling that U out and allowing Stanton to kind of live as a different color behind it, it hopes to emphasize how you pronounce the community. And we run into that in a lot of places where even like Stallings, some people call it Stallings, and that was another one of those where we sometimes have to focus on how community is referenced. And I think that's going to be one of the topics of conversation we have in the village of Marvin as we look at identities is how people refer to it. Is it the village? Is it the village of Marvin? Is it just Marvin? Are they interchangeable? And that might impact some of the design decisions we make as we look at what a brand, what kind of an effective brand we can create for the community. So then once we get into, we've established the primary identity, we look at how we can build out from that a system that works with partner organizations or events. And as you see here, the typeface feeds back into the city, a little bit more formal, where we include the seal, but we've got some marketing collateral on the right, as you like it, using the U and the crown more iconically, even into the Downtown Development Association, putting that crown back on the Stanton S. And, you can just see how that plays out through a number of different variations here. And then in other communities, another one in North Carolina, Graham County, much further to the west from you, but this is a unique community that has a lot of beautiful natural outdoor assets and five distinct sort of districts and communities within the county that we created some sub identities for as well. And, just really played off of that outdoors, kind of played into a WPA style, those old school mid-century and earlier like tourism posters and all to create something that kind of conveyed the outdoors and the feeling of that community and that region. And so how does that look, once we've created the primary identity, where do we go from there and what are the other tools that we can utilize that brand in? And, Newberry just creating a simple calendar of events that they use to this day. We've got some other marketing from rack cards and some promotional pieces, and these ads can be put on either printed rack cards or sometimes some of these that can be reconfigured into social media posts and things of that nature, just depending on what the community needs. And then even as I mentioned before, getting into some swag, and this is a really easy way for a community to start creating more of that and reinforcing that community pride. Seeing people walking on greenways or at the park in a community hat or wearing the t-shirt or being able to give some water bottles away at, a 5K or other events. These are just really affordable ways to implement a community identity. And then some of the things that get a little bit more expensive for communities, like what Hendersonville has done with a lot of their physical infrastructure, updating their tree grids and their street furniture, adding some gateway sign, even updating the glass panels on the corner clock there on, I believe it's a bank in their downtown, and some pedestrian wayfinding. There's just a lot of different ways we can look at how we're going to implement a brand. And, again, this is going to vary based on, the existing just infrastructure of the community. But Travelers Rest in South Carolina has done a tremendous job with theirs. And, a lot of environmental graphics and bannering, but also a lot of social media graphics where it's just a bold image with the TR. And one of the taglines for them was "It starts with TR," whether that's the trails or the transport, travel, the trip, the trek. We've even had auto dealerships there use it for selling trucks in the community because that starts with TR. Yeah, so just how everybody kind of plays around with the different concepts here and what works best for them. And Norton, Virginia, doing a lot with bannering outdoors and, again, just focusing on that imagery, not trying to be too wordy in any of this or overwrought with any of the design. Just, you let those images use their thousand words and put the community brand on there. And then even into some, and other types of graphics for a community, whether it's applied onto municipal vehicles. We've had a lot of fire trucks and a lot of police cars, but also public works vehicles. And you can see here they're using the seal as well that we redesigned for them and updated. So that's how a lot of what we look at community branding. But there's kind of two sides of the coin with a community brand where you have your municipal identity and then you have your popular identity. And so we often make the analogy of a university where you have your municipal identity, which here is the Appalachian State University, and it does have the bird flying across there. But then it's got the athletic identity, and if you're going to a football game, nobody goes to a game to see the seal of a college with four columns and a textbook opened on it. They're going for their team. And so that's where we kind of like to think about community identity from a municipal and more of a destination-based approach.
That
Similar.
slide is pretty topical this weekend.
Oh. So in Troy, that kind of shows the difference between, having this municipal identity that has their historic seal on it, where it was updated with the new typeface and the colors that were chosen for the community, but then the more, kind of air quotes, popular identity for, the destination, again, to attract more interest in visitors and investment in the downtown, whether that investment is time with people spending there in the community, in the parks, or in the stores or the restaurants, or investing into, their own businesses and endeavors in that community, and sort of how that builds out into some other extensions there. So that all being said, with some examples, this is sort of kind of a high view of what we're looking at for in the village of our engagement and the development process, and then our deliverables. This is kind of our kickoff with you, the steering committee, to talk through all this, get everybody on the same page as to, what kind of the expectations should be, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the process and deliverables. And so, on our visit coming up, I think on the 3rd, we're going to be doing an in-depth tour of the community. And that will be sort of a half-day tour where we're going to be looking not only at the character of the community and the assets you have there for the branding component, but also sort of more of the physical infrastructure that's there for the wayfinding component as well. So we're going to have a guided tour, and then we'll probably break off and do a little bit more of an independent tour so we can just drive around and do a lot of photo documentation on that. And we may be having some one-on-one stakeholder meetings for people that might not be able to participate in the themed roundtables or the public engagement, but whose opinions are important to the process and outcome of these projects. And we'll also be putting out a survey for the community that they can sort of fill out and give some of their initial input on what they think about the community of Marvin and sort of their interpretation, and start helping us understand the character and the aspirations of the community. And then we'll come back a few weeks after that and do our 3-day uh, charrette style engagement workshop where we'll have about a day and a half of themed roundtables where we'll be meeting with a number of different groups of folks, as well as having a public meeting. Again, just trying to absorb and take in as much input as we possibly can from the community so that we can start putting creative ideas together that we'll present on the third day of that charrette visit. And we'll present those back to you as our steering committee to get your initial response and feedback to that. And then we will kind of go through a 2-week, 2 to 4 week sort of feedback process where we'll let you live with it for a little while, give us some feedback, we'll make revisions and come back and do another uh, presentation based on all of the feedback that we get. And throughout all of this process, the wayfinding will be developed as well because the mapping and a lot of those, the destination mapping and all can be done in conjunction with the brand. We just won't work on the physical design of the wayfinding system until we're kind of in the brand development process. And so we'll show some examples of that early on, but we'll refine the design of the wayfinding more as the brand is refined and finalized. And so then again, we'll go through the revisions on both of those and come back for our final visit to present those the brand touch manual as well as the wayfinding plan. And so that's kind of where we end up with our deliverables is everything we just walked through tailored to the needs and wants of the community, but also some other recommendations in there. And we will turn over uh, the ownership release of all of the intellectual property we create through this process, from photography to the brand concepts and designs and all of the extensions over to you all. So you will have free reign to do with those as you please. And we'll package all those up into a nice online repository where you'll be able to go and always get to the original files. Even if you download something and it gets lost or somebody squishes it or changes the color, you can always go back to that original source and pull that down. And then for the wayfinding, it will include all of the destinations that we establish with you as the community and with inclusion criteria for which ones are actually included on signs, all of the sign location mapping, the sign designs and specifications that will be able to be handed off to a fabricator or vendor for fabrication and installation. We'll then have some guidance on what the cost estimates could be for that and a phasing strategy, depending. I mean, given the size and scale of the village, I don't think you're going to have too much issue with a phasing strategy. I don't foresee there being a tremendous amount of signs. But that is something we typically look at whether we follow through with needing to go through that exercise or not. We'll figure that out down the road. And then some ongoing maintenance recommendations about how you budget for repairs and updates ongoing, as well as funding examples that other communities have used in North Carolina to help fund the implementation of a wayfinding system. And so, these are just a couple slides from the style guide that you'll receive, from the color palette being laid out in Pantone, CMYK, RGB, and hexadecimal, the contact sheet that will have all the variations of all the different logos we create included in multiple file formats. So whether you're getting a business card printed, a t-shirt printed, updating the website, or having a billboard printed, you're going to have all the files that your vendors will need to work through what they'll need. So I'm quickly going to run through the wayfinding portion of this as well, because as we're working through the branding process, we're going to be keeping up with this as well and sort of stepping those through the process kind of hand in hand. the point of wayfinding is to reinforce that sense of place and community identity, allowing people, letting them know whenever they cross the bridge or they, cross an intersection into the community that they've arrived in a place. And, reinforcing that is very important. We want to curate the visitor experience in a lot of communities that have business districts. We want to make sure that we're sending our visitor traffic through these corridors and into these districts, and not so much reinforcing bypasses or cut throughs. A lot of locals know how to cut through to get around traffic, but we really want to curate the experience for the people using this system, and as well increasing that local awareness and community pride. And in some cases, we're helping to clean up a lot of clutter from signs that have just been sitting there for years and updated but not replaced, or just weathered and not replaced. There's a lot of bad signs out there that need to be updated, and so that's something we'll be looking at too, is if there's a way that we can consolidate or clean up clutter at any of the intersections we're looking at for signs. So, whenever we look at wayfinding, this is sort of our top-down approach, or, outside-in approach to wayfinding, where people experience wayfinding in a community. They see a gateway sign that welcomes them into the community, and then we have high-speed trailblazers that have the branding on there, and then it moves into the low speed as the speed of the roads get smaller and slower. We can move to a slightly smaller sign. Then we look at bannering strategies for corridors and just adding some color to some of the either districts or the corridors of the community. Banners can accomplish a number of different things. They can be traffic calming, they can promote events, they can also expose people to corridors they may not be aware of if they're used to driving, down one road and they see banners heading off to the right of them. They might not have been aware about something happening down there. So we like to use those strategically of how we can kind of draw people's attention to it. And then parking is one of the last sort of breadcrumbs on, in a wayfinding system where we're trying to get people out of their cars. And in doing that, we want to direct them to parking assets and resources in the community so that they can, get out of their car and start experiencing the community on a more human scale than in their car. And then that leads directly into some pedestrian wayfinding. And again, how applicable all this will be, we'll establish this as we work through the process. But it's always just important to kind of think of it holistically as a complete system. And so here's some examples of some gateways we've either designed or seen with some of the communities we've worked with in the past, have designed after the fact, from Belize in Central America to Hendersonville again, downtown Pickens, a simple pole-mounted gateway. Hendersonville has, a nicer pole-mounted gateway, a little bit more depth to it, and then even College Ave in Hartsville having the arch going over there. It was a really nice design. And all of this is designed based, or all of our wayfinding signage is designed based on the MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So, this will help get through all of DOT's permitting process, really just basing everything on here as best practices, and really keeps us from hitting any roadblocks, no pun intended, as we head down the design and development of it. And here's some examples of some fairly simple wayfinding signs from Travelers Rest and Statesville, and then the new ones in Casey and West Columbia, the River District that we just finished up last year. And, wayfinding, you can easily get very expensive in signs. And I'm of the school of simple is better, not just from an implementation perspective, but really from a user perspective. The more overwrought a design is, then the harder it is to grasp it at a couple seconds glance as you're driving by it. But also, the simpler it is, the more affordable it is for the community to implement. And some banner examples from some different communities, just adding some color. and then a little bit more of that corridor strategy where it looks like we've got at least 5 lanes of traffic here, but being able to add some consistent color down the corridor kind of helps break up a lot of the noise from all of the businesses that are along the side of the road. And, depending on the width and all of the different corridors, these can be really effective. And then parking signage in Lynchburg, Virginia, uh, really just helping consolidate a lot of the designs of the signs that they had. They were a little all over the place over years of different people just doing different things. So to get there, as I mentioned before, we're going to go through a destination process with you all to establish where we're going to be looking at the traffic patterns and the routes, and that will establish where our signs will go based on different turns and where we're trying to send the visitor traffic. And then we'll go through the conceptual drawings and get to, a good point on that, give you, I believe we're scoped to provide up to 3 different designs for the wayfinding signs based on the branding. And then we'll go through a sort of a feedback and revision process with that to get to where we need to be. So I tried to speak quickly and get through that. I know it's a lot to cover, but I'd also like to open it up to questions and answer and just, you know, see if anybody has any questions about the process, the outcomes, or any of that. Or Aaron, if I skipped anything through that needs to be included, please feel free to chime in.
I don't think.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't have any questions specific.
I'd like to ask a question regarding the survey itself, if I'm not getting too far ahead. Who is this
Please.
distributed to, and how will it be communicated to the community? And the reason for that question is we did a branding study for Marvin and our community 5-year plan, village plan. And by neighborhood, we had the results. We had neighborhoods that the response rate was 2%, and the largest response rate was 19%. So the question is, when will this branding survey be sent? Who is it sent to? And how will we communicate it, most importantly?
That's a great question. And Austin and I have been, it was a major topic of one of our initial meetings recently was the survey, the questions in there, and how it's going to go out. And it's my understanding that they have a pretty good email list for the newsletter that it's going to be distributed, and through some of the other social media avenues to put it out there. And one of the main questions in the survey is the zip code of where you live. And so that's going to kind of be our driver of looking at the data that we collect from there to make sure that we're really honing in on as many locals as we can possibly, get, understanding that this is going to be an open survey. So it may get out to, some outsiders, and that's not a bad thing. We might have people that commute in or commute out that, that use, that their interaction with the village is different, and that's okay to get their input because we're really looking for character. So whether you are, if you driving into or out of the village on a day-to-day basis, we want the input from, as wide a swath as people who have interactions with the village as possible.
Sean, in the past, when you've done these surveys, what is your response rate? So if you distributed 100, what is typically your response rate?
Well, I mean, if it's online, it's it's not. We don't know how many people it's quote unquote distributed to. So we can't really get that. And honestly, we're not super concerned as much about the response rate as we are about the completeness of the exercise and the input that we received, the quality of the input. And I can tell you from our past experience that, as Sean mentioned, sending it out digitally via, and Sean, I know you and Austin have talked a lot about this, so if I say something outside of what y'all have already talked about, please tell me to be quiet. But you know, we found that distributing through social media and through those e-newsletters and e-blasts that you have are some of the best ways to get it out, and not just with the village, but any of the village partners. Certainly Parks and Rec Department would be one. Obviously, that's within the village itself. There might be a key business that everybody goes to within your community. But another thing I would suggest, and again, Sean, I don't know if you and Austin have talked about this or not, but HOAs have their own newsletters there in your community, and I think that might be something that would be really helpful to try to get them to help us, you know, promote this. I know from having worked in Stallings, I know from having worked in Indian Trail and other places around Charlotte and other urban areas that a lot of folks are spending most of their time commuting outside on a day-to-day basis, and their connection to their community first and foremost is going to be with their neighborhoods. So that would be our HOAs, and then with their schools. So, we've certainly had some success in having the school districts send out a flyer with the children when they go home from school, or through their own chalkboards or whatever digital tools that they have. Here in Greenville, we have one called Backpack, and Greenville could certainly send that out that way. So to me, I think, again, just to sort of rehash, social media is the best. Let's utilize our partners, whether it be businesses or whether it be our local HOAs or individual departments, and then try to get their help in promoting this as well.
Really fast, just to put you guys in the strengths, really scheduled to go out this Friday, September 16th. It'll run until Monday, October 10th. Our this weekend is going to start with the newsletter because every other week there'll be the two newsletters.
Austin, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. I can't make you out very well at all. I don't know if it's a microphone or not.
Is this better?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the survey will run from September 16th Friday until Monday, October 10th. We can primarily start with the newsletter. It's about every other week. I'll be the headline in each of the newsletters. There'll be social media posts that will be created by the consultant, graphics and all. There will be email newsletters that will be going out, and we will be working the HOAs to have their next HOA president's meeting.
I have a couple questions/comments. Sean, this is Christina. I know I'm not in the screen, but I'm over here at the corner.
Okay.
This is the first time that this committee's seen the survey, so I feel like there's a couple of questions and opportunities for improvement on this. I don't know if you want us to talk about that aside from you all and then just report back to you after this meeting, or if you want us to go over this with you right now today. I do have a couple of questions aside from the survey itself, so I don't know how you want to handle both of those comments.
I think it's probably, we don't have to go through question by question, but I know if you want it, and I'm looking at it right now. Do y'all have it there in front of you?
We do.
All right, I tell you what, and sorry for butting in, but I think it probably is good, Christina, to give you all the time to just kind of go through it yourself and come up with some thoughts on it, because there's certainly some things that we try to do to tailor these surveys to our individual communities, but always having your guidance helps. I will say, as you go through this, what we try our best to do, this survey is really for its input to our process. So it's really for us to have knowledge and for the community to really educate us about perceptions of community character and things that they love about the place. And that's all input into the design and branding process. And I say that to say, as we try, I mentioned earlier about the completeness of the survey. We try to keep these surveys to go between 10 and 15 minutes, hopefully closer to 10 minutes, because once it goes longer than that, you start having people drop off. So just keep that in mind as we're thinking about massaging or adding questions. And that, I just say that to say, there is some intent behind this, but we don't have any problem with adjusting this need be. But yeah, I think take some time and look at it. But just if you flip through the pages, you'll see that there's a little bit of a structure to it. At first starts talking about, okay, who are you? Where do you live? Again, Sean mentioned this earlier. That zip code is one of the most important questions that we'll ask in the whole thing. But we'll also ask people, what's their connection? Do they live here? Do they work here? Do they live and work here? Do they come here for, visiting? Then the next page and series of a couple of pages and series of questions really digs down into the character of the place and people's perception of Marvin. And again, most likely the majority of people that are going to be answering this are going to be residents of Marvin, but there absolutely could be people that come and enjoy parks resources or come to an individual business or visit family that live in Marvin that will have an outsider's perspective as well, which will be good. But understanding that perception of the place, how people think about, they have a favorable perception of the community, and then really digging into, what are some of your favorite places there? What are things that you hold most dear about your community and the place that you call home? And we'll ask questions like, what's the personality of the place? How would you describe the community in an image? Just a singular image. And that might be a little bit harder in a place like Marvin than it is in other communities that have, say, a very well-defined historic downtown environment. Who knows? But one of the things that we might see there is that image is, a middle school sporting event, or maybe it's one of the public festivals that you all put on, and so it can be very descriptive. But again, this is all about the character of the place. And then it moves into brand identity. The next couple of pages is about, what is the purpose of this? Is it to build pride of place? Is it to promote our events? Is it to promote tourism and bring more people in here? Is it to position Marvin as a place for invest and operate a business? Honestly, that's a little bit of a trick question, because the reality of it is it should be all of this. But as we go through it, we'll be able to rank people's priorities on what we need to focus on first. I do think we do have a couple of questions in here about communities you compete with, as well as community, and what distinguishes Marvin from those communities. Again, knowing what we know about that greater metro area that you all exist in, there's a lot of competition between you and your neighboring place, and so it's important for us to establish that.
So Aaron, I don't mean to interrupt you. We are actually we're gonna adjourn with you guys, and then we're actually gonna go over all these individual questions with this committee after we get off the call with you all. So we'll spend some time talking about each individual question and kind of the intent. One question I did ask you guys, because it is a question that I would pose to the group after we get off with you, is, do you have the ability to insert photos into the survey if you wanted to add? Okay. Aside from any specific survey questions, do you have any questions?
About the survey, how important, in your experience, how important is it to get non-resident input on this survey?
Again, Sean, you can tell me to be quiet if you want to, but
you have a lot more experience with the back end of the surveys than I do, so I'm happy to let you speak on these.
Well, every place is different, and as I mentioned, I think the vast majority of people that will participate in this are residents of the community. For us, the answer to the question is more data, the better. The more warm bodies we have participating in this, the better. More data makes this stronger. But I do think, particularly from, again, knowing all these puzzle pieces of communities that make up that greater metropolitan area, it probably there would be some value in getting some people that live outside the community to participate in this. One of the completely different community, but just to just to kind of echo the validity of that question you've just asked, is we recently did this exact same survey, or actually, well, it's a different project, but it's a more of a strategic plan. But we did a survey in this community in Wise. It's called Wise, Virginia. It's in the far southwest corner of Virginia. I'm sure you've never heard of it. It's a nice little community, but like 99% of the people that did the survey were local residents, and that was not surprising, and that wasn't bad. But the big thing there is they have UVA Wise, which is a University of Virginia satellite campus that's out there, and they weren't necessarily participating in the survey. And we wanted their input because they were mostly outsiders from either the region or far away. And so what we did is we worked with, after the fact, worked with the university to have them post it and promote it and get those students and faculty to participate in it. And interestingly, we got double the number of respondents in that second go round, specifically aimed at those folks, as we did the first go round. That's really irrelevant to your question, other than to say that we do find at certain times, hey, we really do need that outsider's perspective here. So we would certainly look to y'all's guidance on how we can get that word out better. There may be some regional partners, like a regional chamber of commerce, or other entities and destinations that exist around there that may be asked to say, hey, we're doing this branding and wayfinding study for our community. Would you mind helping us out by promoting the survey link? And I'm sure what we'll find is if we find the right partners to do that, then we'll get more input from people from the outside. I'd say it's important, but it's most important is the people that live in the community.
Last thing I'll say, Aaron, with the survey, the first two questions that talk about where the person lives, we do share a zip code with the town of Waxhaw, so there will be a lot of overlap there if people from Waxhaw do answer. And one thing about question number two, there are a lot of people that don't know where they live. Some people think they live in Marvin. A lot of people think they don't. Some people in Marvin think they live in the town of Waxhaw. So
That's what our mailing address is.
Yeah. We worked years ago in Granite Quarry, which is a neat little town in Rowan County, right outside of Salisbury. The entire town of Granite Quarry, which has been there for over 100 years, its zip code is Salisbury. So how confusing is that? Especially, that wasn't a branding project, but especially if you're talking about something that's community identity. So that might be a great question for y'all to help give us some guidance on. We could add another question about, I think zip code is important, particularly when getting people up from far outside your town limits. But we can ask, well, where do you live? I live in the town of and maybe you have a handful of towns in the region, Waxhaw, Marvin.
Hey,
I don't know how far Weddington is from you. Yes.
I'm just gonna stop you real quick. For the sake of time, I think we need to spend a little bit of time on the survey questions themselves here with our group today.
Sounds
Do
good.
y'all have any specific questions about the survey at all, like that you want to ask? Okay, we'll address those after this meeting, and we'll get back to you on our findings. I do have a couple of questions aside from the survey in terms of the process itself. Are you planning on doing any type of basic elements of streetscape at all in your final report?
Not of streetscape, no.
Okay.
We will, we'll show some like street decorations, more so,
Okay.
where like bannering and the wayfinding signs themselves and pole selection for those components. But the closest we would get to actual streetscaping or anything like that would just be more like street furniture, like you saw in Hendersonville examples and things like that, not getting into anything about like the road itself or that infrastructure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it'll be environmental graphics that we'll do.
Okay. In terms of the wayfinding element, are you going to present any type of firm right analysis of parcels at all? In terms of development, what developments are firm, which ones are right, which ones are not? Do you look at that at all?
I'm
I
not sure
didn't
I
hear
understand the
that.
question.
Like
Yeah.
certain parcels of development, like when we're talking about what we're gonna wayfind,
Mm-hmm.
like where we know certain things are gonna go. Do you
So
think?
yeah, if you know an industrial park's going in, or you know there's going to be a destination that can be included on the wayfinding system, and we have a firm development like deadline for that, if we know something is going to be coming on in 2023 or 2024, that's definitely something we'd want to know through this process so that we can look at putting those into the system, because it's going to take us a few months to develop this and then to implement this. And so even if that development might not be online when the signs go in, if there's a 6 month difference there, then we don't want to have to go back and redo the sign in a year because
And
we
and that'll be really important when it comes down to phasing of this as well. That's something that, because most of these wayfinding plans themselves, I mean, they're more infrastructure projects than they are anything else, and so there's a price tag that goes along with them. So most communities don't do them in one fell swoop; they phase it over time. And I remember that was a big thing that was important in Fort Mill when we did a wayfinding plan for them a few years ago, because they had at least 2 or 3 schools that were either under construction or planned. And we made sure to incorporate those destinations that we knew were going to exist in the wayfinding system. And then we were able to phase in the development of those signs when those came on board. But also, too, and there'll be guidance in the final wayfinding document on this, there's destinations that don't exist now that will exist 10 years from now that we don't even know about. And so we try to build a system that can, as best we can, grow and evolve as the community's destination changes as well.
Okay, so just for sake of everyone hearing it here, we just need to make sure we communicate what those areas are that we recognize. So you guys are going to do in your implementation strategy, you are going to do a phased approach. Okay, and then the last question I have is we are planning to do focus group stakeholder meetings in one of your visits. Are you all going to submit questions to staff or this committee before that meeting takes place? Or are you all just going to have those the day of the event? I feel like some of the questions that we're asking, or that some of the statements you guys have made, we can address those in the stakeholder meetings and then put into your report in the stakeholder analysis. But I would like to see those questions beforehand so we can make sure we've got all of our bases covered. I'm not sure if that's something y'all had communicated to staff that you would get them prior to those meetings, or if it was just going to be an open-ended discussion.
It usually is open ended, but we kind of follow a little bit of a bulleted framework for it. But we have zero problem with getting you those questions, those bullets in advance. We might go off on a tangent depending on where the conversation goes, but it does follow a bit of a framework.
Okay. Yeah, if you can just send those over to Austin and him and I and Jay will sit down and meet and talk about the structure of those questions and how we can go. I don't have any personal questions from here on out. I think we need to spend some time, just a second, with this committee, but I think you've got a couple of them.
This is just a simple one. How does the 3-visit schedule that you listed go with our dates? Which
So,
parts are we included in?
I can actually answer
Okay.
that question. Austin's prepared a very good kind of timeline. Him and Jill sat down and went over a timeline. So we've got everything covered with what his visits encompass. Y'all don't have a copy of this, but it's a very nice diagram of what his visits coincide with what the intent of the
So staff knows that answer.
Yes.
We need them, or we don't need them to have an answer.
unless yeah.
And that sheet will be updating internally. So we're going to constantly be tracking the process.
Anything else? You have any questions for them?
I'm good.
I'm gonna end it.
Guys, I think we're good. If you guys don't have anything else to ask of us, we're going to go ahead and proceed into discussing these questions. But please follow up with me afterwards and send me those questions.
Sounds good.
Great. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
just let me know. I forget what the date was that you were trying to send the survey out, but it's a fairly quick turnaround on our end, if it's just some language or what have you. But so just let me know when a good time for you is, Austin, so we can circle back to just talk about what you all end up with today.
Yeah, we're going to try to get that out this Friday in our newsletter, which we normally send out around noon. So that'd be my goal.
Great. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you all.
Take care.
Wait, what?
Are we
We are recording. We're still in a meeting, yes.
still we need to talk?
Yeah, we're still on the agenda. We're talking about the survey. That's item number 2.
Schedule first, then we'll do this conversation. As feedback, these meetings
And what other things are going on? Because it's so,
Okay.
yeah.
Then we'll-
additional dates in my calendar.
Yes, that's your council roundtable discussion. That's not a committee meeting. Okay, so let's go through the schedule. The October 24th through 26th, Monday, October 24th, that is your opening meeting with the vendor again. They're going to be asking you all as a roundtable discussion they're going to be here. We're going to have a committee, lunch for the committee. The committee is going to be participating in the roundtable discussion. And that'll last until about 2 o'clock or so. Following that, staff will go into a roundtable. And then after that will be advisory boards and then property owners. And then we'll go into a public input meeting in the evening. You guys are not required to attend those. You can attend however many you want though.
At what point are they going to do the site visit?
So the site visit happens before the next meeting. That's not a committee meeting. The site visit will be happening on Monday, October 3rd.
So you and Jill.
Yes. And so they'll be coming here. We'll be taking them through Marvin. We'll be taking them to the park and where they need to go. And they're going to spend time on their own driving around following that as well.
How big of a deal? I think it would maybe help them a little bit if you put like a parentheses and a little sentence to kind of summarize what that meeting. what
It's
the
in their,
goal
it's
is.
already in their calendars that way. It's just not on their
Okay.
formal schedule that way because we don't
Gotcha.
normally put that on the
Okay.
schedule.
So in their calendar in Microsoft, it says,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, there's a description with every meeting.
Who's they?
You guys.
It's on
Yeah.
our calendar?
Yeah, all these dates are already in your calendars
With a general description.
with a general description of what each meeting is about. And the October,
And what calendar are you talking about? Yeah, but
when I send calendar invites
I
out,
do have a smartphone, but it doesn't like your calendar, so I have to input everything separately. So that's fine. If it's out there, I will figure it out, but it's not been straightforward so far.
okay.
And accept.
You're accepting the calendar invites, they'll go in your calendar and
But it doesn't.
So after this meeting,
Yeah,
can
I will
we
follow.
talk and, because I think there's an easy technological solution.
we can figure that out. We'll follow up after this
This
meeting.
last longer. Yeah, sorry.
On Tuesday, the 25th at 9 a.m., council will be having their roundtable discussion with the vendor, after which time the vendor is going to, they're going to be working by themselves, coming up with the draft brand, and they're going to report back to you all, to the committee on Wednesday, the 26th at 4 o'clock. They'll give you the draft presentation of the brand and what that entails, and they're going to do the kickoff for the wayfinding. And then the meeting we have scheduled for November 9th, that'll be your chance to give revisions on the brand. So you essentially have 2 weeks from the time you first see it to think about it, consider what do you like, what do you not like, is there an element missing? And then you'll report back at the November 9th meeting at 10 a.m. To give that feedback. And depending on how much feedback there is, we'll have a December meeting. The November and December meetings are fluid. We can change these dates. We might not even need the December meeting depending on how the project is going. And as far as the remaining wayfinding dates with the vendor, we still have to work that out. That's just up in the air depending on how fast we're proceeding through the project.
Austin, if we're really doing final revisions on the 9th, then I'd really like I told you. like-
Yeah, we're gonna move it. We're gonna move it. I've had another member come up to me and say they need to change that date,
Which day?
November 9th. So that's the question for you guys. When do you guys want to have that November 9th meeting?
Why is it?
Kim's unavailable and one other committee member said that they were unavailable for that time. So Kim, when are you back in town again? Week of the 14th. Okay. We can move it to, I'm out of town that day.
I'm out of town that week.
I can do Monday, the 14th. I can do Tuesday, the 15th.
Jill said I'm out.
I'm out. Conference.
I'm out the rest of the week for a conference.
Why don't we
You're
do
out the whole week, Kim?
Why don't we do the last week in November?
When's that, okay, so revisions come on the 9th, when's that go to council for their approval?
It depends on if the committee has further revisions. If the committee has further revisions beyond that date, it extends to December. Are you okay with that, Mindy? Okay. Okay, so we'll keep it on the 9th. And then if we may not need the December date, but that just depends on where they stand in their process. So if we don't have any more revisions, we may use that meeting to go to do more wayfinding stuff, or we may not even need that meeting at all. It just depends on where they stand and what they need of us.
So just part of process, Austin.
Mhm.
The survey goes out on the 16th, comes back October 10th.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
And that information will be collated prior to October 24th.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
The goal of that, they need a certain number of days before the branding workshop to really compile the data and get it into the proper formats that they need, that they're going to use. So we have maximized the time that the survey will be out there. I've even pushed them probably a couple of days past what they initially asked. So my goal is to have this out there in the public and to berate the public over the head until they answer it. So I'm really trying to stress this with all of our communications throughout social media, newsletters, HOAs, and we're probably going to try to we might try to squeeze this into the local schools and like the principals' weekly newsletters. That's really our goal too.
What are your thoughts about, we've got that HOA president meeting coming up in late September.
Yes.
And that date is
September 29th.
And that gives the HOA not very long to get that survey out.
We're gonna email them. We're gonna send out a group email before then to try to get them.
As a reminder more.
Yeah, and then we'll really push the reminder out during the meeting.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Mike Gilboy send out something specific to the HOA president.
Yes.
As the lead.
I can write it up. That's fine.
I think that might be beneficial.
Okay. So we absolutely can do that.
Are y'all ready to jump into the survey questions itself?
I do need them to adopt this schedule.
Okay.
Though. So I do need a motion to adopt the meeting schedule as presented.
So moved. Can I say it that way?
That's good. I need a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
All right, real quick. So as the discussion prior was about the home address zip code, I think everyone in Marvin has the same zip code, so I'm not really sure that question is warranted, unless we're just trying to ask the question, do you live in Marvin or not?
There is another point to that question. One of the target audiences for the survey are those people that are coming through Marvin on a daily basis, either commuting to work or either they live here or they end up here during the day for work.
Yeah.
Given that
So-
very few places.
Yeah.
There's a purpose in identifying people that way with that question.
And how are those people who don't live there before?
I mean.
On the residence list.
It'll be social media, and one option we can use to get this out to more people is we can do paid social media advertisements to push this out even further, and that would target more people even beyond our boundaries and people who do come through here on a regular basis, because those people would be theoretically tracked online through online data. So this would get to them that way.
So so an alternate to this question would be, do you live in Marvin, yes or no? Or and the next question could be, are you a commuter or something of that nature? Do y'all want to keep the home address question, or do you want to simply ask the question? Say again.
You mean the home zip question?
Yes. Do you want to ask the question home zip, or do you want to ask if they live in Marvin or not?
I would almost rather add a question that just says, like, list your neighborhood,
Well, that was gonna be my next question. So,
but
because
keep the zip code question, so we can capture if people in Fort Mill or Indian Land are answering this survey. I would be curious.
Extra data, I don't see how it could hurt us.
So one of the questions that you had asked, Bob, was what subdivision do you live in? We could add that question and that would give us the answer if they live in Marvin or not.
I'll just remind her, make sure your microphones are on, just so that all the questions are getting picked up.
So you can basically copy that. So do y'all want to keep the home zip and then add? Okay.
I did not know. Living outside of the area, we're gonna fund the survey, but.
All right. So Austin, there was a question that was on the last survey that said, that listed like what subdivisions you were in. If you can just basically take that same question and answers and give it to them, but also add anything that's been,
Yeah,
Text box.
yeah, text box.
okay, you want to do that? Okay.
I live in, Provincetown.
So just add a simple insert
Yeah,
question.
I got it.
Everybody good with that? Keep question 2.
Yes.
Do y'all want to keep all those answers? You want to
Get
remove the
rid of
tourist?
tourist.
You want to
That
remove?
doesn't make sense.
I mean, that
Okay.
just doesn't.
So let's remove the tourist question and then keep all others.
Go with that.
All right. Number 3, there's a couple on here that I didn't think were good answers, but everyone liked the question, right? Do y'all want to?
Do we need to have a question about opportunities for shopping?
Well, so I'm going to get to additional questions after we go through these, if we can just stay on track with these questions, and then we'll talk about it, additional questions, unless they,
No, I think it's in there.
That is the que,
I'll ask for it.
you're asking about question 3, right? Perceptions of market?
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. Has great opportunities for shopping.
Oh, you mean exclude that?
Yeah.
I think we can do like shopping and whatever. I mean, I think that do have commercial.
Well, it's a great place for visitors. Do we need that?
Just keep-
I
mean,
I
we don't
suggested
have
taking that out.
downtown, we don't have.
just keep in mind that any information gathered here is going to the vendor, and they're the only ones that's going to use this data. So if some people, I mean, I think some of these questions could be more valid.
I think to his point though, like the more stuff you add, the more it takes away for people to,
Keep it.
I
at
think the
3.
less is better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I do think we need to remember what they said, which is this is what they do. They've made this as brief as they feel is relevant. So I would be hesitant to hack and slash it because they've already sort of timed it and kept it to where it should take you less than 10 to
15 minutes,
15
yeah.
minutes max to fill it out. So I would just keep that in mind and remind you of that as we go through.
It's also not a negative thing necessarily if somebody says, I disagree that this is a great place for shopping.
Mhm.
It's not a great place for shopping, and that's okay, actually. Yeah.
So,
You don't want just, you
Okay,
don't
are
want
we
just
leaving-
questions all going to be in the affirmative. That's not what you want
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Well, and you don't know down the line after the Heritage District is here, you may find yourselves doing a survey like this again, and you could see totally different results and see the impact that the decisions and development you've made have had on
So-
perception.
are we leaving all, or do y'all want to leave all of them? Is that what I'm coming?
I'm not
Okay.
gonna die on my sword on it, no.
Okay. Question 4, everybody good with it? Seem good question. Okay. Question 5, good.
Yep.
Question 6, good. Here, that says character. Mhm. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I actually thought these questions were kind of interesting. I was very interested to see what all the were about. Yeah, exactly. I thought it was an interesting way to ask the questions instead of, here's a long list of things to pick from. You got to use your own mind.
So with the rest of them, I personally didn't have any issues with the rest of them. I do have some suggestions. Did everybody like the rest of the questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go over the suggestions that I had, so y'all can either say yes or no. One of the things that I thought we should do was add a question in here that talks about design elements for the signs, like which kind of design elements people liked. As you saw, he had 3 different examples of signs. One was a little bit more elaborate, one was kind of simple, and then, I can't remember the other one, but kind of picking and choosing what type of sign people were drawn to.
Without a picture, I don't think that's why you're gonna get, I don't think you're gonna get any.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even know how to answer that without a picture.
Yeah, that's why I said have the pictures. So we can either see if they can do it. If they can't, it's not a big deal to me, but I wanted to get y'all's opinion on that.
Just, this is a branding survey. This isn't the wayfinding. This is squarely the branding
Oh,
component.
okay,
So there's
okay.
that. Okay, good point.
Well, okay, yeah, that is a good point. Okay. Well, then scratch that.
One of the reasons why they have it separated out is the design for the signs is going to be based on what the resulting brand is. So the resulting brand's going to lead into the shape of the top of the post, the most minute things.
A couple of questions that I wrote down as we were talking was, what's the greatest opportunity for growth in Marvin? I mean, that's just a question that we could pose. It's a very open-ended question. I don't know how y'all feel about that.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how I would answer that.
Yeah.
Like I'd like to see more parks, more greenways, more retail shops.
My only pushback is when I hear that, the first thing that came to my mind is, what can we do to get more people here?
Say that again.
When I first heard that, I squarely heard that from a population growth perspective.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
That's why I stumbled.
Okay.
How many can you just slam in here?
What would you like to see more of in the village of Marvin?
Would you like to see improved
Mhm.
facilities?
I like it.
But is that?
We've got that in the brand.
A branding questionnaire, back to that. I don't.
Oh, that's a
I mean,
good point.
That's like you're asking something else,
That's a good point.
but branding is about what it is.
And I'll just mention a couple of other ones. What are the reasons that you live in Marvin?
Well-
I like that better, maybe.
You know, we did that in the community survey. And I think we already know the answer.
Well, we know it 5 years ago. What did it say?
Well, it wasn't 5 years ago.
Okay.
39% of the people said safe community, 35% said peaceful, 34% suburban, 22% said comfortable, green 22%, natural. A lot of it had to do with the environment, low density environment, rural, so on and so forth.
Y'all like that question or?
Choice, were they given choices or was that a free text?
I'm not sure how that was conducted, Jill.
We would have to pull up.
I think I want to say that it was multiple choice. Kind of.
The concern I have, and I'll maybe disagree with Aaron. It's very important to, I think, everybody here that we get a very, very good response. And the reason I say that, when we did the 5-year plan, if you'll go back and look, we had 2 neighborhoods out of all of Marvin that probably turned in 75% of the surveys. And then we have the neighborhoods that didn't respond complaining about the village district. And they had an opportunity in that questionnaire to say, hey, I'm for the village district, and I'm not for the village district. And a lot of neighborhoods chose not to respond at all. So I'm hoping we get a diverse response from a lot of different neighborhoods this time, and not just 2 neighborhoods called Marvin Creek and Weddington Chase. What if we don't? Well, we don't, but
I think we should get as much input as we absolutely can.
from as many people as we can. Well, and I keep saying this, and I think I'm wrong, but I'm going to say it again. I think the HOA presidents group is very instrumental, Kim, in it. And for the life of me, my buddy here has done everything he can to get this thing going. And I go to these meetings and we have, now the last time we had a decent turnout. We had about 8 or 9 neighborhoods, which was pretty good. I'm sorry? I absolutely. So, yes. So, but somehow we have got to get the HOA presidents on board.
You're not putting the information out there. You're just not going out there and helping yourself.
I'm just, and it's the same, and I know we're all very busy, but we don't have that many HOA presidents meetings. In fact, we have maybe 2 or 3 a year. And what we talk about as a community is very important. And I would think the HOA presidents would want to disseminate that information to their neighbors. So anyway,
So,
I'm through.
yeah, we could do a really good job on our end trying to
Yeah,
push
okay.
that.
There is one big thing that's different than from the 2019 community survey to now. We have dramatically increased our online audience. Back when we did the 2019 survey, the average opens for emails was 10 to 20%. We are now at 55%
Oh,
open
wow.
rate.
Oh, good.
So it's,
And a broader base.
yes.
So going back to the question though, do y'all want to have that question in the survey? Do you live in Marvin? Because we never,
You said, why do you live in Marvin, right?
or yes, sorry.
Yeah, but I would keep it maybe open-ended instead of multiple choice.
But just remember, not everybody answering lives in Marvin.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
In Marvin, why do you live in Marvin?
Okay. Do y'all want to have that question?
Or if you don't live in Marvin, why would you want to live?
What about reasons it's great to live in Marvin? Whether you live here or not.
That's a good question.
Why is Marvin a great place to live?
I think that's a great question.
Winner, winner.
Yeah. All right, is everybody good with that?
I think that's a great.
I mean, it's an opportunity you don't want to pass up, right?
I was gonna ask if there was an opportunity to mention something about parks and green space. I don't know why I would think that,
Like at number 3.
but yeah, maybe in number 3, greenways, trails, parks, and open green space, like,
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
what? What is that?
I know, and women said it to you.
Wow. Derek, this is your day.
Can you work on a question for him?
This is your day.
Can you work on a green space?
Do
parks
you
question?
want me to add that to the
To the
perceptions?
answers? Just add it to the answers.
Yep.
Yes, to number 3.
Puts a high value on
Yes, yes, I
greenway and recreation.
I can have them add that as one of the perceptions on this question 3.
Yeah, that just seems kind of obvious that you said, now that you say it, but.
Are there any other
Yeah.
questions y'all wanted to add to the survey, or is it?
Oh, thousands, but we weren't.
Yeah, we had pondered an idea, but I think somebody made a comment, like, what are you trying to obtain by that in branding? You can ask.
Let me see.
So I'm looking at what Albemarle did, one of their worlds, like trying to get information. Is what would bring you to downtown Albemarle more often? So what would bring you to the Marvin Heritage District? Like what would you like to see the Marvin Heritage District? Now, put that on the.
I think that's a good wayfinding. And so when I was looking at this, I was thinking of them together. I don't know from a branding standpoint, what you do with that information.
It's too soon to ask that question too. I'm just kidding. Too many people still angry.
And beyond the survey, once we get into the roundtable discussions and the public input meeting, that's going to be another big opportunity to get people's input, especially if they don't respond to the survey. But I really think you're going to have more people than we expect just because of the expanded reach. And now more than ever, people are paying attention online.
Paper copies, so when people come in, be like, here you go, fill this out. I'm not gonna help you to fill this out. I can list you.
I mean, yes, we can do that, but someone's going to have to do the input online. But yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can they input it?
They just we send it to them.
Or you could have a QR code
Yeah, I
that
was
could
thinking of
just,
a postcard with a QR code.
just zap it with the phone
What now?
Yeah.
What QR code?
of the survey link.
So if somebody walks in, saying, hey, we've got the survey, we'd love for you to fill it out. Here's a QR code, scan it, and then I'll.
Yeah.
Once in 10 minutes.
Or can we,
Yes.
can we stick that on all of our communications?
Yes.
Like,
I mean, that's my intention. So we were going to have a link, but we can put a QR code with it on the newsletter. So yeah.
You can just give this to me as an attachment.
Is everybody else good with the survey as presented, with
Question
the
here.
modifications?
Exactly.
I think it's
Yes,
We just
like too long.
Yes, we can attach it.
Yeah. so do that.
Interesting questions to ask. I mean, it made me think. Right. It's thoughtful. It is.
So-
Live, I'll send you the link. That way people can send it.
I think once Austin and Jill get the questions back from the stakeholders,
it'll be.
they will be able to really kind of pinpoint some of those questions to like the school and like business owners or whoever the stakeholders might be, the leaders, so they can kind of generate more answers from what we were looking for from those stakeholders as well.
Well, bringing up stakeholders, who is that going to be? How are you getting them?
So we have a whole list that we were provided by this company of who makes up stakeholders.
Types of people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's property owners, business owners.
But how are you gonna get them to show and talk?
Offer lunch. I'm gonna bartend.
The lunch definitely won't be accounted for.
Just kidding. Strike that from the record.
Strike that out. Record.
We're gonna
And the
do the
recording.
bourbon tour.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna get it.
So I think we have our direction on the survey. Does anyone have any other concerns? Anything to address? Yes. So you guys are not here for the, you guys are not here for the community tour. I mean, Derek will be because Derek's staff, but we're fine. We will handle the community tour from the staff
And
end,
that's on the 3rd.
Yeah. and that's on October 3rd. You guys are only. There's not.
Comes the round table.
It's the roundtable discussions.
The
Yeah.
October 24th,
Yeah.
26th.
That's the branding workshop. And so, yeah, you have your two meeting dates for that and the council roundtable.
And then visit 3 is November 9th. That's technically depending.
Yes.
There might be 3.5.
Yeah, and there may be, and then from there, we'll sort out any remaining dates dealing with the wayfinding half once we have that information.
Okay, that makes sense. I've been on the schedule from the other side before.
No, you're good. Does anybody have any questions before we move to adjourn?
Good.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Oh, hold on. Oh, no, we're good. Here, go ahead. We're good. Adjourn. It's Derek. All right, so we need a vote. Everybody say aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Meeting has been adjourned.
You just wanted.
I've been wanting to do that for an hour and a half.
And Austin, keep going like this.
This. You did this?